Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Thursday afternoon. And joining me from Los Angeles is somebody I've known for 20 years. But today is the first time I'm aware I can call him a best-selling author. Klutch Sports CEO, Rich Paul. Hello, Rich.
Hello, Brian. How's it going?
Hey, man. Congratulations. I just heard about the bestseller thing. Huge accomplishment. I know you've done a lot of things in your career. We'll do a lot more, but
you know what?
Cool.
I don't celebrate a lot of things, Brian. I don't celebrate much at all externally. But I'm starting to lean in a little bit more, and this was something that I never even dreamed of being a best-selling author or ever thought. Wasn't something that I actually sought out to do, but share my story. I guess, people really resonated with it and aligned with it. The feedback has been insane in terms of the amount of people. You know what happened to me yesterday? I was leaving. I had to do another podcast, and I was leaving the set, and a guy on the set gave me a picture of my mother when she was in the 10th grade.
How'd that happen?
With his mother. He's from St. Louis. His mother found out that my mother was who she was.
Peaches,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, her real name is Minerva, but Peaches. And he was like, man, I told my mom that we was going to be interviewing you, and she sent me this. Let me know what you think. And when I opened it up, it was like his mother, my mother's best friend, Tony, her sister, another friend, and my mother. And on the back, it had like the crew, and it had all their names, and it said Vashon High School, 10th grade, which was insane.
Wow, she went to Vashon High School. That's a basketball power.
Yeah, my mother went to Vashon.
Yeah, LeBron played against Vashon when he was in high school.
Yeah, my brother, he played against MacArthur Taylor, who MacArthur Taylor is my mother's best friend's son.
Yeah, LeBron played against Vashon, and there was a guy from Vashon who was going to Missouri. And I think LeBron was a sophomore, and this guy was going to Missouri. I remember his name, but I'm not going to say it. And LeBron fouled him out in 3 quarters. It was just the beginning.
I remember who that is too. Yes.
He didn't make it, but that's okay. I'm sure he was a great player. So 5 years ago, give or take, you were telling me, we were talking one day, and you're like, I want to write a book. Yeah. And I thought it was a bad idea. I don't remember I think I told you I don't think it's a good idea, because I'd read several books by agents, although way later in their careers. And even though I enjoyed those books, and I won't say who they are, I didn't think it behooved the agent. And so, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, when I heard you were doing this book, I was like, man, Rich, I don't know. And then when I heard, before I read the book, it was like, yeah, he's gonna meet LeBron on the last page of the book. I was like, aha, I get it. And the book, by the way, is Lucky Me. I got it right here, if you're watching on YouTube. By the way, this picture of you, Rich, how old are you in this picture? You're shirtless. Yeah. What's the story of this picture?
So I'm probably about 13, 14 years old in that picture. And that picture is very significant because that age is right at the crossroads of a young man in my community where there's a fork in the road. And you're either all the way left, or for me, I was a little, veering off, like the on-ramp type of thing, or the off-ramp. I wasn't all the way right, but I was more right than left for sure. And there was a lady, we called her Picture Lady, but she's actually, she used to take these Polaroids, and she would walk around and she would take pictures of all the guys on the block. And if you had a car, I would get pictures of my bike. And, because I was a young kid, I would get pictures of my bike that I paid $2,000 for when I was in like the 8th grade. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I think I said this on Breakfast Club. I was like, the difference between someone that goes to Stanford and their idea, and someone that's in the Glenville community and their idea. It's options, opportunity, and having someone that's willing to give you a push. That lady was Instagram before Instagram. And she actually sent me a message when they heard it on Breakfast Club. They sent me a message and they said, they showed me a picture of her and she was doing well because prior to that, she was having the same struggle as my mother. But that was her hustle, was the pictures. And they showed me a picture.
So she sold the pictures? She took a picture and sold
it? Yeah. It was $5 a picture.
Well, that you got your $5 out of this one.
Yes, I did. And man, it was just so good to hear that she was doing so well. And then her son sent me a message through somebody and said, man, I appreciate you. That's my mom you're talking about. And I've known this guy. He's from a different neighborhood, but we've known each other for years. Would never even know that was his mother. And I've always treated her with respect.
Well, the thing to me is like, it's obviously a gritty picture, but you were always so proud of your fashion, which you talk about a lot. And your fashion, it ended up being a really important part of your life. But you're not wearing any clothes in this picture, Rich. I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
actually,
you got to have some.
The significance of those Tommy boxers were fashion. To have on those Tommy boxers was a fashion thing. And today, you know, me and Tommy talk and we spend time. I went to Queen just to see his whole archive. And we talked about doing a collab together and stuff like that prior to. And just that whole juxtaposition, Brian, of a kid who in that picture was doing everything and to wear the clothes and buy the clothes and, you know, taking chances and, you know, all type of stuff. And then now today I'm sitting here, you know, having conversations with Tommy himself. It's just life, man, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard you talk about that before where, you know, you bought all the Tommy Hilfiger stuff when you were younger and now you're you know the man. But I actually think from my perspective, one of the more interesting things that's happened to you is that you were really into the throwback jerseys. And you were working with a guy, and I forget the guy's name, who owned the store in Atlanta. And you were flying down to Atlanta.
Andy Hyman, yeah.
You were basically, you know, turnkey. You were buying his stuff and then reselling it out of your car, and you were selling tons of it. I remember, I think you wrote in the book 10 to 15 grand a month in the late 90s. Like that was real money. That's real money now, sir. That's real money now. 2000s, yeah. And you wanted to invest in his store.
I did,
and he wouldn't let you invest because you had money. I'm gonna kind of jump around here. The book is just trust me. You had money because of you were hustling. You were selling.
It was
drugs
a collective
of
things. It was all types.
But you had money. It wasn't like you had already bought a house. You know. So, by the way, one of the most impressive things in here is the fact that you bought a house when you were 19 and you got a loan.
Yeah.
I know
It was a first-time buyers program that an older gentleman told me about. And I had a bank account, you know, and I would make sure I was putting my money in my bank account and things like that. Every time I hit the number, I put, you know, you can cash your lottery ticket and it goes into your bank account and stuff like that. And it was a first-time buyers program through Fifth Third. Yeah. I still own that house, by the way.
Is that right? Huh.
Yeah.
So you bought it. So if I was hearing that story when I was 19, I'd be like, okay, he's got a house, and I'd have moved on. At 45, because I've bought some houses, the idea that you could buy a house when you were 19, that's something. All right. Anyway, so you had some money, you wanted to invest. The guy wouldn't let you invest. He wanted you to work for him. But the reason back to Hilfiger, like a year or so ago, I don't know how recently, you invested in Mitchell and Ness. So you were, you know, it was part of a number of NBA type folks. I know LeBron, KD, other folks. And Mitchell and Ness is owned by Fanatics, but you now are a part owner of the Mitchell and Ness, of the product that you were selling 20 years ago. And to me, that has to be fulfilling. That
it's
you
only
are now
right,
part
though,
owner
right?
of the company.
It's
It's only right, but it's not something that you get to see very often.
Not something that you get to see, no. But when that opportunity came, I'm saying it's only right because if you think about it, Everybody out of everybody in that group of ownership at Mitchell and Ness, the authenticity and the one with the most knowledge and information and relatability, the whole nine, it's right here. It's right here. You know, I remember Jared Jack was at Nike camp. I went to Nike camp. Maybe it was Jared Jack's brother. But anyway, everywhere we went, I would take my jerseys with me. And this after I met LeBron, after we started hanging, whether it was Chicago, I got my jerseys outside of hoops when Antoine Walker and Jawan Howard and those guys would be up there playing pickup.
Hoops gym was Tim Grover's gym in outside Chicago where Jordan used to play and where LeBron met Jordan when he was like 16.
Yeah. And so we would go up there, and man, when they come out, I had my jerseys. And when we went to the Nike camp,
on that street right outside Hoops Gym, you would just park your car
Loop.
right there.
West Loop. I'm inside the parking lot. You know, West Loop.
Yeah.
Whatever car we took, my man G had a cap. But whatever car we took, I had my jerseys in the trunk. 1,000%. I went nowhere. Like Linus had his blanket on Charlie Brown. I went nowhere without my jerseys, and because I had the flexibility, I was DoorDash before DoorDash.
Right.
But with
jerseys, and also you couldn't go to Amazon and get a Warren Moon jersey or Wes Unseld or whatever.
No, you couldn't. And the key to me, though, selling my jerseys was this. Whatever the price tag said is what I sold it for. Where at that time, the malls, because it was a monopoly, nobody else had them, they could take a $300 jersey and sell it for $500 because you couldn't go on Amazon and get nothing. And where else are you going to get it from? So they had to.
Supply and demand.
I'm the only one that you can get it from, and especially in Cleveland. And you know what the bigger issue was? I got called on by a guy called Mitchell and Ness and said, hey, Rich is shortstopping me because he can hang out in the mall and shortstop people from which I really wasn't doing this. I wasn't doing that. But I had Browns players, I had Indians players, Guardians today, but back then it was Indians. Yeah. But and I did the same thing. And there's a guy, when we was in Chicago, I used to go to the Nike Town every day. I went to Nike Town every day. We stayed in Chicago. And I went every day. So I was just sick in the head with this stuff. And I met this kid named Terry. And me and Terry got cool. And we ended up trading jerseys one time. And so he said, man, every time you come in, you got a new jersey on. And I said, yeah, what's up? He said, man, where you getting all these jerseys from? I said, I sell them. I have them. Like, I got them. And he couldn't believe it. So when he got off work, he came to see me. And I showed him. He was like, oh, my God. He was like, man, how much is that? I was like, it's $300. He was like, man, they selling that jersey for $500 up at Tony's. I didn't know what Tony's was.
Right.
He was like, will you go up there with me? Because I want you to see this. He took me to the north side of Chicago. I had never been to a place called Tony's. And I go in and got the jerseys hung up. And he was like, my man got these jerseys for $300. Y'all sell them for, and they couldn't believe it. And I had stuff that that they didn't even have. They wasn't getting the stuff I had for another month or so. Because I get to pick in the litter. It was
right. You would fly down to Atlanta, you would work for Andy, and then like you would be able to buy what he had at cost, essentially.
At cost, on the spot, like 40% off. But then it got to the point to where me and Andy was so close, I had him ship it. I used to have people take me to the post office. I would get a money order, overnight the money order, next day air for what I want. And then I would pick it out over the phone, and then he would ship it to me next day air. I would include the next day air fee for him to ship it back to me. Yeah.
So what were the two jerseys that LeBron, quote unquote, got in trouble for? One of the most ridiculous things. I know one was Wes Unseld, but I don't remember what the other one was.
But the thing about it is he was doing that for someone else. He had all the jerseys.
Yeah, that's
I think it was if you look at the Adidas camp, the ABCD camp in Teaneck, he had on a Rams number 12. I want to say the guy's name is James Harris, quarterback.
So in the summer of his senior year, he went to the Adidas ABCD camp in New Jersey, and
We
he
left
was.
Nike, went to Adidas. Right.
So yeah, this is this is a great story. So this is right before LeBron's going to sign his shoe deal, or a year before he signs his shoe deal.
Year before,
He broke
yes.
he broke his wrist.
In
He got
Chicago, I was
he
with
got
him. Yeah.
undercut. It's probably the worst injury of his career, right? Knock on wood.
At the Mac, yeah, that was at the Mac Irving tournament. That was at Julian High School.
He got undercut going on a dunk, broke his wrist, so he couldn't play in the summer tournament. So he went to the Nike camp in Indianapolis and did a press conference wearing Adidas shoes. And then you got, I don't remember which was first. And then he went to
Adidas and wore Air Force Ones.
It's great. I loved it.
Because the jersey he wore, it wouldn't have looked right if he wore a shoe that had all the colors of the jersey in it. So he just wore a white Air Force One. But he had every jersey. I made sure.
You were already at that point. Were you helping him with style at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm all over the place. All right.
Yeah,
okay. I'm all over the place. All right. So 20 years ago, anyway, I remember, Rich, I remember you were in the first TV commercial LeBron ever did.
The choke.
Which was for Sprite, which is a great commercial, even to this day.
Oh, the neck crack,
all the LeBron commercials is in the top 10. You can tell them what happened in the commercial. You were in the commercial.
Yeah, that was the neck crack commercial. He was all on the couch. You had to do the whole, and it was like a spoof almost, like a neck crack, but it ended up being the Sprite bottle, which was pretty cool. Right. And that commercial ran and ran and ran. And at that time, I was just still trying to figure things out. I hadn't had a role at all.
Yeah, at all. Right. Well, yeah. So basically, I just saw you as a guy who LeBron trusted and was with. I mean, I didn't know what you did. Yeah. Didn't you do some modeling? Didn't you, true or false? You modeled for Rockaware, Jay-Z.
Yes, that was in 2007.
I thought that was like 2004. So
no, that was October 2006. We was in Africa, and that campaign came out in the Vibe magazine in 2007 when All-Star Weekend was in Vegas. Okay. It came out that weekend because everybody was getting it in the airport, and they would open up the Vibe magazine, and boom, there I am. They're like, "What the hell?"
I know people were like, "Rich is modeling." All right. So anyway, two things happened when you decided to become an agent. Two things happened where I was like, okay, this guy might make it, which you have made it. Breaking news. One was the first game LeBron was gone from Cleveland. The beginning of the low period for Cleveland. Mm-hmm. You were at the game.
I was at the home opener.
Even though like anybody with LeBron was generally persona non grata there, you came to the game.
Yes.
And they won. I think they won that game. Like they beat the Lakers or something.
The Cavs, it was a home opener. I don't know if it was the Lakers in the home opener. I think they played. We have to look it up.
I thought they won. Anyway, that told me a lot. Also, the fact that when LeBron left to go to Miami, you were the one who called Dan Gilbert to tell him.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll bet that was a fun phone call.
Well, fun or not, it was the right thing to do for me.
Right.
Because I'm just someone. Integrity matters, and so despite how someone may feel or whatnot, I thought it was important for him not to hear it on TV.
Okay, so the second thing that happened was when the Heat lost in the finals to the Mavericks. In the moments after the game, I don't know if you remember this. In the moments after the game, this is like the lowest point of LeBron's career at that moment. The Heat are devastated. They've let this final slip through their hands. LeBron, frankly, has played very poorly, not necessarily in that game 6, but certainly in the couple of games before that. And I ran into you and we had a conversation, and I don't remember exactly what you said, but basically you had a very good handle on the situation. Like you totally got that this was a setback, but it's not the end of the world, and we're going to be better from this. And that was within 7 minutes after the end of the game, when emotions would be flying. And this is laughable now because I know how you operate. I know that you're all business. And this is one of the things I would tell people about you. I may even have said this on this podcast before, is that no matter what you want to say about Rich, he is a businessman. And so this book, this is where I'm getting to, is where I can kind of understand where that comes from. And that's why I didn't understand when I said to you, don't write this book, because I thought it would hurt you more than it would help you. And then I read it and I go, okay, now I get it. You tell a story, I'm thinking that you're recovering from a low moment with dignity and integrity. And I realize in reading this book that it wasn't in the top 1,000. And like you
No.
tell a story about this guy you knew, Cactus. She would tell the story about Cactus real quick.
Yeah. So my friend Cactus, and I tell this story because I want kids to understand perspective and what we struggle with as young Black men. So Cactus is my friend. We grew up on the street next to each other. I grew up on Edmonton. He grew up on Woodside, on the east side of Cleveland, in the Glenville community. This particular time, we've gambled 1,000 times, but this particular time I win. But it's a different type of win, and Cactus has a different type of energy about me winning. Now, a lot of times when situations like this happen, people don't know how to communicate what they're actually feeling.
How old are you at this time?
I'm a sophomore because
Okay,
I know
so you're
exactly
six.
what I had. I know exactly what I had on. Yeah, I think I'm a sophomore,
Okay.
maybe my junior year, because I had on the Griffies, black Griffies and Tommy sweatpants. But what happened was, for this particular time, this may have been all the money that Cactus had. Whereas in other times, it may have been, because you never know what's happening in somebody's life during the course of a day. So anyway, I'm getting a different energy from him. And oftentimes when things take place, it's because someone is reluctant to actually communicate to you how they feel, because they are scared of being judged. And in the Black community, we do so much judging of one another that you don't want to be embarrassed by something. So it stops you from communicating in a way that you actually should. So in this scenario, I can feel it. My spidey senses go up. And so now I have to get in position to where I can protect myself, right? I do this, and he and I have a conversation. But now this conversation, where it should have came from, was just like, look, man, bro, that was all the tea in China for me. Look out for me, man. I'll get back with you. I would have had no problem. But now I have to have a conversation also while exuding that you got to respect me as well, because, that's just how it was in the neighborhood. And so we had that conversation, and we actually got past that and was really friends. And the thing about it is, in that moment.
But he was going to rob you.
Yeah, no, for sure. In that moment, he had to do what he had to do in that moment for him, right? That's just how it was. For me, I had to do what I had to do by better positioning myself, having an understanding that this is not who he is per se, especially not towards me. But in this moment, he has to do what he has to do, because I don't know what's behind the wall of life for him. And this is important. This is important right now. So I positioned myself to where it prevented him from doing something that he probably would have regretted later. Because this is the same guy on this day, he would have had to do this. But on any other day, if me and him were together and we had an issue, we lock it in. We standing back with our backs to each other against anything that's in front of us, because we was from the same neighborhood. But that's how the neighborhood is. Today you can all be together, and tomorrow someone may have to do something that they regretted doing, but in that moment they felt they had to do it, all because they lack communication skills and they do not want to be judged. So I had to position it to where I can make him feel like, look, man, I'm not going to judge you. Just tell me the real. This between me and you. And it really stayed between him and I until the book came out. And I didn't.
Well, but he was gonna you took all of his money. He was gonna rob you and do who knows what.
Yeah.
When you parted ways, you lent him money back.
Yes.
And later on, he went to jail for.
He's in jail now for murder. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, and that was
So
the
we know.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So the capabilities was there, you know.
And then while he was in jail, you paid for his child to go to school.
One day I got a call and they was like, this kid needs something, son needs some school clothes or whatever. And that's my man. Like, yeah, cool, no problem. Like, because I understand people.
So
Yeah.
like, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm thinking about how you're handling tough situations and how you're and I mean, I'm from Akron. I know what it means to be from Glen, or at least I know the concept of what it means to be from Glenville.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like every day. I don't pretend to know that,
Yeah.
but I have a general idea of what it's like. I knew that we were never supposed to go to St. Clair, East St. Clair. No way.
Yeah.
And you would have probably told me, yeah, don't come around.
I would tell you that today.
Right. So I'm just saying though, that like that interaction with that guy where it could have gone sideways, that was a negotiation that you were having in your age 16, 17. And here I am like watching you work negotiations 15, 20 years later that I'm saying, oh, okay, he's handling this with a lot of business sense and a lot of experience. But really, and that's what this book taught me, is that you'd been doing that for a long time.
A very long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And you used to say to me, you used to complain to me sometimes like, look, I'm getting treated a certain way by the media, by a team, by whatever, by the league, whatever. And it's just because I'm me. If this was such and such else. And like, I agreed with you to a certain extent, but I also didn't fully understand it until one thing happened, Rich. And that was that the NCAA put in a rule that said you had to have a degree to be what was the rule?
Yeah, you had to have a degree to represent guys that were going to test the water.
Yeah. Which is most guys. You're not representing too many lottery picks who were played 4 years of college. And that was absolutely a Rich Paul.
Yeah, he was targeted at Rich Paul for sure.
So when you heard that,
me for sure, yeah.
When you heard that, what did you do? What did you think and what did you do?
At first, I was just like, whatever. But then when it dawned on me, I'm like, no, that's bullshit. So I that's when I wrote the op-ed, because I'm like, okay, as much as it's about me, it's not about me per se in terms of them being able to hurt me, because I can navigate around anything, right? That's whatever. But it's about the people coming behind me, and the trail I'm blazing supposed to make it easier for the next person, despite what color, what gender, what background you come from. It's you can be defined by your business card, or your business card to define you. There's a lot of entitled people in our business. There's a lot of people in our business with positions that are assholes, that are spoiled, that does things with malice, and don't really care about the player they represent or their families. And we know this. It's all part of our industry. But then there are some people that are a little bit different. Not many, but there are. But the ones coming up, especially the ones that aspire to be in the business because they look at me as an example, this is all they know, because this is all I exude, in hopes of changing the landscape of the business. Because prior to, most agents knew what? The family lacked financial stability. They perceived them as dummies all the way through, from mom, dad, grandmother, down to player, down to siblings, etc.
This wasn't just with basketball players. This is with generally all Black talents, entertainers, whatever. This was,
right. And the person coming through the door alongside the athlete was perceived as entourage, hanger-on, all those things. And this is what makes me so upset now, when these guys next to the athlete still does these same low-level thought process type of moves. about the bag. Like, it's so idiotic to still be stuck in the same place to where, yeah, you can have a bag all you want. But the day that bag get a hole in it, in the bottom of it, then what you got? You got nothing. How about the positioning? How about the perception that increases the positioning and and building the capabilities to enhance the positioning, and then that positioning allows you to have some decision-making power.
This is the problem. The problem is, while you've been very successful and continue to be very successful, there are many others who either are trying to follow in your footsteps or came before you where it didn't go well. And so the NCAA, with a straight face, or whoever, or whether it's a team or whoever, can say, well, they're just trying to protect the player by putting in a rule like this.
That's BS, because we know this for a fact. In our industry, you can basically tell, okay, if a kid goes to this school, they're going to this representation. Why you didn't stop that?
That's true. Yeah. Well, I mean, nowadays you see guys who are, there's 15, 16-year-olds who have agents already. I mean, there's I know that
NIL, NIL is really, it's NIL is necessary, but it needs to be controlled, if that makes sense.
Okay, I don't want to go down that path. I want to read something that you wrote here. This was probably one of the most interesting lines in your book that I read. I wrote it down immediately. My business today, the agent business, player representation business, has refs and rules, but no integrity or honor, and definitely none of the consequences I grew up with. I think it's one of the most important sentences. I'd want you could expand on that, what you mean by that.
Yeah, I grew up in an environment to where we played a game with no refs and consequences. Today, there's refs and rules. You got the NBPA, you got the league, you got, agents that have bosses or whatnot that they report to, etc.
I mean, even the media to a certain extent can be a backstop.
Media as well. And nowadays it's even worse with media because everyone has a voice. Everybody's media today. And so all it takes, for me, what most agents do, they leak something to a guy who has a podcast or a platform and tell them to bash Rich Paul, and they do it, but whatever. But there's no integrity, because most of these agents today, and especially as it pertains to me, the one thing they do, and this I've been consistent with this across the board, they go in households and they only want to talk bad about Rich Paul. To me, that should be the biggest red flag for any family. I don't go in anybody's household and talk bad about nobody. And there's no consequences, but there is a consequence with me, because when I see you, it's a different tone, it's a different energy, and we'll have a conversation about it. And whatever that conversation leads to, then it is what it is. But I just look at things different, because it's one thing to be in competition and be in business, and may the best man win. That's part of it. It's another thing to do things with malice, to do things with the lack of integrity, to lie, to just tell a blatant, flat out lie. You remember, Brian, when I first started my business, LeBron owned it. LeBron owns his business, right? And what are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. But at the end of the day, based upon who that was so disrespectful, because what they're saying is, it's no way that LeBron would sign with this guy without owning his business. But on the reverse side, well, then why would they sign with Jeff Schwartz? Or why would they sign with, Dan
Fagan. R.I.P. Dan Fagan.
May rest in peace. Why would they sign with anybody else per se? Why would they sign with Rob Pelinka? Why? Because they went to college and somebody what was the, and that's not a slight to those guys. I'm just saying the perception. And it's almost like everything that I'm saying and advising is being questioned, but everything they're saying and advising is like gospel. And it's such a backwards thing. And so, it's less of that now, but it's not totally out the way. But that's just a psychological dysfunction that we have, unfortunately.
To my knowledge, I don't think you've ever lied to me. And
What I'm gonna lie to you about.
but like that's the word. Like as for a reporter, I'd rather you not talk to me than lie, because if you lie, this is one thing I learned early in my career. Because if you lie and then I go and report or repeat that lie, now it's my problem. If I
Yes.
can't find out, I'm like, look, I can't find out.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Brian, because you're doing the job and you have a family. And if I lie to you and you go publicly and say something, it may be of detriment to you.
The
So
other thing
that,
that happens, yeah, the other thing that happens is sometimes I piss you off. It's happened in the past, it'll happen in the future. But and but you've always been all business about this. And it's not it has nothing to do with me and you, but it has to do with how you do business with teams and players. I've seen like I've there have been situations where you have a tough negotiation and then you hear like, well, this team will never do business again with Klutch. And I'm like, that's a mistake, because what you don't know about Rich is like he'll go 30 rounds with you and leave the ring bloody and and everything. And then another client has business like 2 days later, and it'll be like the other thing didn't happen. As far as I know, as I've seen you operate, that's how you've always
of
operated.
course, and we know that's false, but again, that's where the lack there of integrity, that's being positioned. That's a narrative that's being placed so they can go in families and discourage, right? Which is elementary school. If you ask any owner, they'll tell you to act. They'll actually tell you the opposite. We'll much rather deal with him because we know we're going to get the truth. You know what Dan Gilbert told me one day? And I hope Dan is doing as best he can. What Dan said to me one day, he goes, Rich, man, you are a tough son of a bitch, but I love you and I respect you. He told me that, and this is coming from a man who built Quicken Loans. He built Rocket Mortgage. He's built, so at
You've
the
had
end of the day,
some bloody wars with that dude.
yeah, but when you think about it, when you read the book, I get that from my dad. My dad had to deal with a roller coaster of emotions from any people who just spaz out about anything. He had to stay calm, he had to stay poised, and he had to be able to smile tomorrow with that same person that flipped out today. And that's just how life is. So this, what I'm doing now, again, there's no pressure here. I can show you pressure. You want to talk about pressures in that book. This is not that.
There's a couple of stories in that book that are pressure filled.
Yeah, and I can't expect. I'm done trying to expect people to be who I know they're not going to be. I'm way beyond that, and I'm not just an agent. And I think people get it misconstrued. Number one, based upon appearance. Oh, you should be totally happy just being an agent. The previous agency I came from, that was their mentality. Oh, you should be delighted that you have a business card and you don't have a college degree and you have a job. Like, really? Okay, well, that's what you want to think, but I don't think that way. But that's up to you. So it's all good.
How important was it your backgrounds being similar to LeBron's to you guys forming a relationship? Did that matter?
I think in terms of relatability, in terms of interest, in terms of being able to be vulnerable with one another and have a shared experience, yeah, it matters. You have to. That's the reason why in the agent business, that's what created the pay. There's no relatability. I don't know you enough to be able to have a real conversation with you. You don't respect me enough because you don't know. So the only thing I got over you is a financial gain. Or is either that, is that in addition to, I'm just going to tell you everything you want to hear all day long. It's going to be yes, 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 and you're the best, and blah, 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 all day long. Those two things built businesses.
Because you both of your mothers had struggles.
Yeah. But was real G's though. Real G's.
Yeah.
Well,
and end up being vitally important to you.
Very. Yeah.
And both of your neighborhoods ended up, shaping you, even though he moved around, but certainly where he was from. I don't know if the Elizabeth Park projects compared to Glenville, but that
Yeah,
was
listen, it's all the same, man. Yes, they do. It's all the same. I've been in Elizabeth Park. I've also been in Spring Hill. I've been down at Temper Tops, all that in
yeah.
Akron, and that's just like in Cleveland. Yeah, no. One thing about me, I respect everywhere I go because at the end of the day, you saw Equalizer 3?
No, is that no?
Well, when you watch it, you know Denzel, he does his whole thing, and it's the little kid is the one that shoots him. So you learn
Okay.
it. You got to respect everybody.
Well,
You know.
and I'll ask you this: your partner, Miss Adkins, she has a. I know you like to talk about her, but I just want to ask. She has a somewhat similar background. She's from a rough area of London. She had a single parent. Like, I don't know if that matters to you too, because either of you, because again, I'm reading this book. I know LeBron's meager circumstance. I know just because I've read about it, Adele's meager circumstance. I know your meager circumstance. These are two of the most important connections you have, and you all. I know that Tottenham wasn't like Glenville, but I mean there is some
Oh,
connection there.
yeah, no, Tottenham's back. No, yeah, again, you're right. I don't like to talk about it personally, but yeah, when you talk about if you want to have an understanding of why this or why that, for anybody in my ecosystem, read the book. You have a better understanding.
All right, let me ask you this: what do you want to do? What do you want to be doing in 5 years?
In 5 years, depending on what month we in, if we're in the month of August, hopefully I'm on the French Riviera, relaxing. No, it just depends, Brian. Me, man. Like I'm a grinder. I'm a grinder. I love what
Yeah,
I
you
do.
did $900 million in business this summer, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I
So,
did. Less. Um, and you
do you
know,
want to do this? Like, I mean, you got a lot of clients you want to do a lot of deals for, but I mean,
do I
I
want to
didn't
continue being an agent?
a decade ago, I would not have seen you here where you're at, you're in partnership with this big Hollywood agency. You're on the
UTA,
board,
yeah. Mhm. I'm on the
UTA.
board of Live Nation. I'm on the board of LACMA. I'm on the board of Designer Brands. I've been able to transition from just being an agent, and some people want to call it what they call it, a mogul or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'll leave that for other people to say. But for me, it's just about continuing to evolve. I don't put a limit on things I can do. I don't put a ceiling on it. My interests are remain consistent. I want to represent players. I want to continue to be a part of different verticals, build out different verticals of the business. Today, I wake up every day, Brian. I look at companies to buy every day. I look at different companies to buy. In addition to talent, in addition to talking to teams and um, second opinions when a guy gets injured and shoot deals and all that stuff. Like, I'm a grinder. I had my best friend in town with me. He goes, man, I thought, I thought, I thought my days was busy. Like, man, I don't even know how you do the stuff you do. Like, you all over the place. And it's because my dad worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. People get it misconstrued. They get a perception of me, and they don't like my leather jackets when I sit courtside. And the agents, the other agents use that as, look, he's arrogant. He's sitting courtside with a leather jacket on. It's like, relax, man. No, it's like that's you know. And even at the game, I never cheer. I'm so locked in
That's
to
true.
different things.
That's true.
No, it's been great. Look, launching Klutch Athletics in partnership with New Balance. That's a very big deal. That's a very big challenge, and it's something that I'm passionate about and want to grow, which is totally separate from Klutch Sports Group. And we've been doing pretty good, and it has a great growth opportunity. Who would ever thought I would write a book right today?
Right.
I was at the WNBA game on Sunday, Game 3, supporting our clients on the Aces, both coaching staff and players. It never ends for me. But I also I'm not tired. I like to, and I'm not bored. You know, I just
That's
and
I believe that.
I'm not bored. And you know what, Brian? I have a different perspective on the business. And you're looking at it through the lens of, man, I see guys, they everywhere. They had this AAU tournament, they had that, just doing this and doing that. And man, they gotta be. I don't do that. It's okay. Like, I understand you're not gonna get every client. You're not, I want the families and the players that find the relationship valuable. 1 + 1 equaling 3. Not just me, not just them, but us. And those are people that I will go to bat for, and that's where I will lay my hat. I'm not trying to chase, you know, 20 guys a year or whatnot. And ranking don't mean nothing to me. I'm focused on the character, both for the player and the families. I'm focused on, relationship building and respect for one another and things like that. All things that don't normally exist in our business.
All right, a few quick hitters before you got to go. What do you do when two clients that you have sometimes don't like each other? I'm specifically talking about like when LeBron and Draymond were at each other's throats. Now they're buddies, but at one time they were not fond of each other. How do you handle that?
Same way I handle two friends on the block that's at each other's throats. The difference is they just yapping. Over here, there was a lot of other action going on. So it don't bother me at all. That's just you let men work things out.
All right. How do you handle it when a player, because you've done to do this quite a few times, how do you handle it when a player wants to be traded?
Well, I think you got to handle it accordingly. There's been situations I've been in the Anthony Davis situation where at first he didn't want to be traded, and then he got to a place of where he wanted to be traded. And I had to be realistic with him and help him understand, like, just because you want to be traded don't mean it happens tomorrow, right? And then there's situations like I was in with Philadelphia where it probably wasn't the right well, we know it wasn't the right thing to be traded with that many years left on your deal. But the client at that time felt like he couldn't play back for that organization. So at the end of the day, you have to make the best out of the situation and try to handle it accordingly. And you guys sit in the fire. There's no escaping. There's no running from it. I think in going through that, I mean, you and I talked a lot. Everybody understood where things were at, and I know people were like, "This is Rich Paul. He's crazy. He's burning the house down. This or that." No, it wasn't. I mean, my client at the time felt a certain way. He understood that it's not going to be easy. You got 4 years left on your deal, but whatever it was mentally, he couldn't get out of that space where he ever wanted to be back in that realm again. And at that time, that's the space he was in. I'm really happy to see him in a different space today, and happy to see him moving well and playing to the capabilities that we all knew he could actually play. And hopefully he's able to develop it a little bit better and do well for the team that he's on now. So at the end of the day, you handle it accordingly, and I've David Blitzer and Josh Harris, I couldn't be close to guys, as close as you could be with distance in terms of, I'm not going to sit here and act like we go on vacation together, but if I make a phone call, they pick it up or text me back or whatnot, and we have that rapport. So it's business at the end of the day.
Right. And just in case people don't know you're talking about, I'll say the name Ben Simmons. What about when you got to do a holdout? You've had a couple of those situations. I know the word holdout is somewhat sensitive because sometimes a player is a free agent, so he's not really holding out. But whenever you have to go into a long stalemate,
will you restrict it? Yeah. I think that's just based on your relationship with the player. I think it's important for the family to allow you to do your job. I think it's important for the player.
That seems to be important, is the family, because I'm sure that not just dealing with the player, but sometimes dealing with the family who might hear what a player might be able to get and why aren't
but the people, what people don't understand is you need them just as much as anything, and the more you can educate them on, the better things tend to go, right? And for me, again, I can sit out all year long. Tristan was going to sit out the entire year. I had no problem with that. But it's up to the player trusting you and you guys being lockstep. And that trust comes because, at that time, when you're in a situation like that, again, the vultures of the agent business, that's when they sending kites, they dressing up in costumes, they in the bushes of the house, and they dress up as the pizza delivery man to deliver a message to try to poach a player.
Are you making is that you telling us like that literally happened, or you're making some sort of
No,
joke?
I'm being
Okay.
sarcastic, but they
Okay.
will if they
Okay.
could. They will if they could. Trust me. No, I'm just being sarcastic with it. No, but it's at the end of the day, I just have a different perspective on free agency, and I don't have nobody over my shoulder telling me what I have to get done. So I do my business as I need to.
Yeah, because I think one thing most fans, even if they're very savvy, inherently they think about it from the team perspective. I know that there are occasional people who think about it from the player perspective, but
Yeah,
you're fighting a public relate you're almost always fighting an uphill public relations battle.
yeah, because you have people that looking at what they make on their job and saying, "Oh, he's greedy, he's this, he's that," but it's not relative. So, you have to look at it through a different lens and have an understanding of value for this player and this organization at this time. And we don't know how long these guys are going to play. And there's a ton of different variables to go with it.
All right, Rich. Well, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we were all over the
Patience and
place. I'm
patience and
sorry.
poise, though, B. No, patience and poise is what matters, man.
I
So
don't think
that's what
I've ever seen you not poised.
in
So
this world, man, this is child's play with these people, man. Like not and I say that respectfully, not with organization. I'm just saying like the peanut gallery I don't worry about. And in terms of just teams and things like that, it's business. It's like, for instance, Daryl Morey and I had a conversation on Tyrese, and me and Daryl talking, and we're in Vegas. We meet, and he's like, "Damn, Rich, you really broke that down to the exact T. That's exactly what it is." I'm like, "Yeah, I understand. I educate my client. He understands, and we move on. Like, it doesn't have to be what people always think it is. I can fight with a sword. I can fight with a butter knife. It just depends,
yeah,
however you
well, in
want to do
that
it."
right, but in that particular situation, like you've got one player, James Harden, calling Daryl a liar, and you've got your client, who you've got to say, okay, there's not going to be an extension now. Maybe we're going to go later. Say, okay, we got to trust this organization. So, like, there's always
And
different things that happen, but that's a classic, just average day in Rich Paul's life, I would imagine.
yeah, and you know what? If the organization goes away, there's 29 other organizations. So it's like it's fine. I believe in the player and the talent and the professionalism and the character. And so we're eligible for something. We're not entitled for anything. And you just move on, you know?
That's the way I've always seen you operate. Well, thank you for your time. Congratulations on the book success. I'll see you down the line, and hopefully our next interaction, you're not mad at me, but if you are, we'll get past it.
It's all good, B. Hey man, it's part of the business. So, but it's great seeing you. I'm happy the season is upon us. I'm looking forward to getting out to some games and seeing some basketball. I think the league is in such a great space, and it's a lot of good young teams. And I'm telling these guys, you can go in these markets and BS around if you want to. You're gonna come out of there with a loss, and you might get blown out because there's a lot of talent.
You're right about that. You're right
Yeah.
about that. Okay, Rich Paul from Klutch Sports. Book is called Lucky Me. By the way, we didn't even explain the title, but you should.
No, let me explain the title really quick.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Lucky Me, again, I was being somewhat sarcastic because, people say, and especially just the bots on the social media, "Oh, you had LeBron, you're so lucky." I was extremely lucky for our relationship. But there's a thing called yow. Everyone talks about, "Oh, you met LeBron, so this just happened." Well, what about the yards after the catch? So you got to count the yards after the opportunity, right? It's not up to him to position me today how I am. It's up to him If he chooses to, which he did, to give an opportunity, it's up to me to run down the field and make the best of the opportunity. So I was being a little sarcastic there, but it's also my favorite Jay-Z record, Lucky Me. And if you should listen to the song Lucky Me. If you listen to the hook, and my favorite, the whole song is great, but the hook and the third verse sums it up for me. You knowing me, Brian, is spot on. There's also a song, I'm gonna veer off. In addition to that, I was extremely lucky to have the siblings I had, the community I had, for good and bad, the upbringing I had, how it was, even though my mom struggled and whatnot, it molded me, it shaped me. And then working in my dad's store, I learned customer service, I learned marketing, I learned math, I learned so many different things. I learned people skills, right? And so I was able to have examples of people that once had jobs and fell flat on their face. And my dad educated me on the importance of treating people the right way all the time. Not when they have something for you to gain, not when they have something not when they're positioned to deem to be, this big shot. When they up, when they down, when they on their side, any which way, you treat people this way consistently all the time. And in a lot of ways, when you read that book, it saved my life in a lot of ways. And when I say that, it's not just a matter of life or death. I'm saying just in terms of decisions that I made in that moment because of how I treated somebody, or I may have been somewhere and they had extra eyes on me that I didn't even know that was on me, that helped me get to the next board if we're playing the game, And so I value those things. I really do.
The way you sort of sum it up is the trials and tribulations that you went through and survived actually prepared you for what you needed to do. And so you were fortunate. And let me just say this when it comes to fortune with LeBron. I'm one of the boats in the ocean that when the ocean of LeBron went up, I'm one of the boats that rose up.
Yeah.
You are, Maverick Carter.
Maverick is.
There's a lot of us. Yeah. A bunch of head coaches.
There's a good, Wes Wilcox.
A bunch of head coaches, a bunch of organizations, a bunch of people that made a lot of money.
A bunch of people, yeah.
You're damn right. We were all in that ocean. But it doesn't mean that, we didn't pilot the ship either.
Nike,
hell yeah,
a lot of people.
Yeah. It's a busy waterway. All right, thank you, Rich, and thank you for listening to Collective Podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.